Here's what we're going to do today with this review. I know there's been a lot said about this. In the end, it's always about you. You need to use what suits you best. What type of content do you like to play? This is a really good weapon right here with what it has. So my goal, I have over 10 roles to show you today, how they work, what you're getting out of it, and some do not work the way that they should, and some are actually worse than what it says. Some are going to be better. You can see what interests you, so that's the direction I'm going to go. Personally, I found that a true 5 out of 5 god roll is needed to be happy with it in the Crucible, and in PvE, it's just a wealth of riches. There's a ton of roles that are unique. I'm going to go through them. PvE has a lot of cool interactions, and even the Crucible, things like this. So some of the roles I want to go over, I've been grinding PvE centered, explosive payload 1 for all. This happens to be a shiny. And also on the same role, explosive payload desperate measures, explosive payload frenzy, explosive payload rampage. There's also explosive payload kinetic tremors. For Firefly, Firefly 1 for all, Firefly kinetic tremors, attrition orbs kinetic tremors, and one that I don't have that I really want is shoot to loot kinetic tremors. I have a section on that too. In the Crucible, pretty max range masterwork or small bore, accurized rounds, range masterwork, explosive payload opening shot. This one's shiny. Zen moment explosive payload, moving target opening shot, near max stability with Zen moment and light in action, and some other things. But this is a 150 lightweight that turned into a 140 adaptive. They did update the stats from the original. They gave it plus 10 range, plus 5 stability, plus 14 AE. And in a lot of ways, the hype is real. It's Midnight Coup, the legend returns. But in other ways, it's Midnight Cope. Taking a look at some other popular 140s, it's important to think about some of this. I have 7 of them right here. But on the left, I do have Spare Rose and Midnight Coup grouped together. There are other popular ones that were converted to 140s. Midnight Coup and these other two keep the same qualities of the old 150 class. So high reload, high handling, and high aim assist. 90 aim assist on this. 10, 15, 19, more than others. Reload and handling is going to be the same, just a lot more than the others. Being that its stat package is wound up in those, range and stability are going to be the lowest. And 45 stability is like the lowest out of the whole class pretty much. It's pretty low for a 140, as well as the 40 range. That's pretty rough. That's more so PvP though. I'll talk about that later on. It's got indomitability, kills while on a light subclass. You get grenade energy. If you're on a dark subclass, melee energy. And I think it's important for the Crucible, we have 4 recoil patterns here. 80, 90, 95, and 100. And something I want to point out, we do have deterministic recoil. That was introduced, but I personally haven't seen weapons react like this when you start placing recoil to them. Somewhat refreshing because it's very similar to the old bell curve system. And this, PvP wise, I believe it's just a completely different weapon when you switch things around on it. The base recoil is 80, and the base recoil jumps and trails to the right. And with the wall test, I just did letting the recoil go, and then I just did down tension, but with the base recoil, same deal. You're going to see it trail to the right in a line. With 90, that's with a recoil barrel, such as extended. It's the same thing, but reversed. It's in the opposite direction. It trails to the left. And these two recoil directions right here, I really do hate them in PvP. They don't really feel too good. I've worked with it. It's doable, but I don't like it. But then we get to 95, and that's what the counterbalance mod added. It is night and day to me. It does have slight drift. Slight, but the trail isn't there. When I do the down tension part, it is grouped at the same spot. And the same goes for 100 recoil. That's with arrowhead, or that's with adding in a counterbalance mod to a recoil barrel. It's grouped, it's vertical. 95 and 100, night and day from 80 and 90. So much so, I don't use this thing in the Crucible without it. Meaning, I pretty much always have to put on a counterbalance mod to get it to 95, which sucks. That's lame, because they did add to the AE stat, and when you do put an Icarus grip on this thing, it feels pretty good. It takes the AE to 39. That's really nice. It feels a lot better from the air. So I personally made the decision to make it 95 and above in the Crucible. And I can work with the other ones, but it makes so much of a difference for me that that's what I've been doing. So if you have an 80 or 90 recoil direction, try a counterbalance mod on it. I think you'll see the difference. For the perks, and then we'll talk about combinations. I do have those combinations to show. We have third column, Outlaw, Firefly, Shoot to Loot, Explosive Payload, Moving Target, Attrition Orbs, and Light into Action. Final column, Rampage, Kinetic Tremors, Zen Moment, One for All, Frenzy, Shoot to Loot, Desperate Measures. There's so many good things. And with these combinations, I'm going to talk about what they do, how I feel about them, how I rank them. Starting with explosive payload. It splits off 50% of the weapon's body shot damage into explosive damage. And the explosive damage deals 30% increased damage in PvE. It is not affected by damage fall off. So one of the main ones I like, something to go for, is explosive payload One for All. One for All, you hit 3 separate targets within 3 seconds. you deal 35% more damage for 10. And for all these tests, I chose Carl, and I felt Carl was good because he's coded as a major. You know, just a beefier yellow bar. And I did include the crit multiplier because you're going to be going for crits. But the main thing that we're looking for here is percentage. And I'll show you some examples versus ads and some other enemies as we go along. But for this, let's first take regular one for all. And we'll see how the combination changes things. Most of the time you're going to be landing crits, so the base is 6,424, and one for all is 8,672. That's just a base 140, base Midnight Coup. That is the 35% more damage for 10 seconds. But with explosive payload, you could look at it different ways, because the explosive crit is 4,344, and then 2,678. So 7,022 total damage. So you could look at explosive payload. When you add in that crit multiplier, it's doing about 9% more total damage than a base 140 shot. But explosive payload one for all is 5,864 plus 3,616, so 9,480. And again, depending on how you look at it, this is a double damage perk. If you take the base 140 RPM hand cannon shot, that's 6,424, use that base number, scale up to explosive payload one for all, it's actually 47.5% more damage than you would be doing otherwise. It would just be 35% with regular one for all. So you can kind of look at it as this combination is enhanced surrounded at a distance, 47.5%. Very, very good. And we've seen this combination on Bane and Doom. Those are both raid weapons, but a major difference, Midnight Coup is kinetic. It's a big factor, so this is a great combination. We have explosive payload Frenzy. I like this one. It's really nice to have. It's double damage perks. And again, I want to compare it to a base 140 shot. That shot, 6,424. But if you have explosive payload and Frenzy together, it deals 25.7% more damage than a base hand cannon shot. And that's great. Max reload, max handling, it's good. Again, because it's acting as a double damage perk. We have explosive payload Rampage. Now, here's a swing. This is why we test. We use that base 6,424 non-explosive payload damage. Just a base hand cannon. We go to Rampage 3. Rampage 3 is 8,548. But explosive payload with Rampage 3, when that bullet splits, it's 5,779 and 2,678. The total damage is 8,457. It's actually less damage than regular Rampage 3. I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. So I went to try it on some ads at the start of the Garden Raid, and it's the same deal. And the simplest way to look at it is once we get Rampage 3 on a regular Midnight Coup, see that 5,400 damage, but with Rampage 3 explosive payload, we see that bullet split to 2,709, 2,646, not taking the crit multiplier in play at all. Combined, it's 5,335, which again is less damage than a regular base Rampage 140. I would stay away from Rampage explosive payload. We have explosive payload kinetic tremors, and I don't have the roll, but I do have it on Hung Jury. Note that explosive payload isn't adding any extra hits to get kinetic tremors to proc faster. It's not adding any more damage to the kinetic tremor waves, but it does have some utility just for more PvE damage, especially at a distance with that explosive shot. And with tremors, it's some damage on some beefier targets. Explosive payload Desperate Measures. Desperate Measures stacks at ×3. After a weapon kill, it does 10% more damage. If you get a melee kill, it immediately goes to ×2, which is 20% more. Another melee kill, ×3, that's the max stack. It's 30% more damage. And remember, Desperate Measures, it also works when it's stowed. So if you throw out a ranged melee and have your shotgun out or your grenade launcher, when you switch to Midnight Coup, Desperate Measures will be at ×2. Base Desperate Measures ×3 is 8,351. That's 30% more. But explosive payload Desperate Measures goes to 9,129. 42% more damage opposed to 30%. So this would be better than Rampage 3. And going further, we have a world here where regular Rampage ×3 is better than explosive payload Rampage ×3, but it's worse than explosive payload Desperate Measures 3 and pretty much the same level as explosive payload Desperate Measures 2. So as far as explosive payload, great PvE perk. I would rate them like this. Number 1, explosive payload one for all, because it's easy to get going in PvE. High damage for a kinetic. 2, explosive payload Frenzy. It's just good damage. It's fast. You don't have to do anything special. 3, explosive payload Desperate Measures. It's got a high ceiling loop. 4, explosive payload Kinetic Tremors. There's utility. And last, explosive payload Rampage. Don't do it. Next, Firefly. And Firefly is a great perk for what it is. You get a headshot final blow. There's an explosion. It goes out 4 meters. Does damage to surrounding enemies. On that headshot final blow, you also get +50 reload for 6 seconds. And at base, that gets you to 100 reload. So for the combinations, let's look at Firefly One for All. It is a great perk combo. I mean, it's on Doom as well. That's the only other weapon. It's a Raid Void Scout, and this is kinetic. You have Firefly for Ad Clear. You get the fast reloads, but the hits that you get from Firefly explosions also count as hits for One for All. So if you get a final blow in a group, you can get One for All instantly. Or of course, simply just shoot 3 separate targets. You grab One for All. And at that point, the Firefly damage does take on the effect of One for All, so the Firefly explosion deals more damage. It's good, but I noticed in slightly higher tier content, I found myself switching off of it. Because in higher tier content, when you do get a final blow, it's harder for Firefly to collateral, and sure, you can get tags, you can proc One for All instead, but at that point, you're just playing for One for All damage, and when you're at that point, when you're to that point, you might as well be using explosive payload One for All for that 47% more, if that makes sense. But it's no doubt a great perk combo. It works pretty well. We have Firefly Rampage. It's a great perk. It's what was on the old Trust in Ringing Nail. If you get a headshot final blow and it collaterals 2 other targets, you go right to Rampage 3. It's not bad, but I do think that this thing has a much higher ceiling. Great for regular content, but gonna have trouble on higher tier. And also somewhat for Firefly Frenzy. I mean, it's good. You're gonna get a super fast reload. You're gonna have 15% more damage. You're gonna have some collaterals, but again, I believe that the ceiling is higher with some other things. There's Firefly Kinetic Tremors. It's pretty good. You have Firefly for the ads. You have Kinetic Tremors for the larger enemies. And especially with something with shields, it's going to take the full 6 bullets, but the Tremors will break the shield, and then when it does, it's going to deal a lot of damage to them and down them. It's not bad at all. It's just utility. It's very to the point. One side of the weapon is for a certain type of enemy, and the other side of the weapon is for another. But as far as Kinetic Tremors, it's the only one I don't have, and I will be getting it. It's Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors. I've talked about this a ton. Look, I see a lot of people talking about this perk. I play solo a lot. I play in groups too. But this combination, I'm always going to stand behind. Because when you look at Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors, and I brought it up in the Hung Jury video, as you're landing shots on a larger enemy, what's happening is you're stunning them, you're getting more damage on them, and it doesn't experience fall off. So with the hand cannon, it's going to be doing way more damage than the hand cannon's doing. You're stunning them in place. Those waves are also getting collaterals to all the ads around that enemy, but those Shoot to Loot waves are also picking up ammo bricks, special and heavy. Not only does it pick it up, it reloads everything. And on top of that, orbs. If there's orbs out there, it's going to pick up an orb. And let's say you have better already, recuperation. You're going to get charged for surges, whatever it is. One wave could give you a chunk of health, start your recovery, give special and heavy ammo, and reload everything. It's all there. So no one's ever going to convince me that this is a bad perk combo. No one. And I do think that a reasonable Destiny player can look at that and say, you know what? For a kinetic weapon, you're still going to be working with your special and heavy. But I don't think a reasonable Destiny player can say, you know what? That's bad. That's a bad perk. That's trash. I would never use that. I don't. It's a really good thing that it does. So I'm still going to be grinding for Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors on Midnight Coup. I will get it and I will use it. We then have something like Attrition Orbs, Kinetic Tremors, and this is pretty cool because the waves count as hits. Sustained damage, you drop an Orb of Power. And again, I haven't talked about it. Everything here is going to be enhanced. It can be enhanceable, like Kinetic Tremors is going to take a bullet less, but this setup, let's say you're on Stasis, Renewal Grasps, or Osmiomancy Shadebinder with Stasis turrets, you're running Attrition Orb Kinetic Tremors, you would run Rending. Primary ammo deals increased damage to frozen targets, and Bonds. Defeating frozen targets generates Orbs of Power. So you would freeze an area by the turret or the Grasp Dust Field. There's a lot of orbs to be made right there, and I don't think this is bad at all. Especially if you get a yellow bar frozen in there. You just lay into them. Other things are going to get frozen pretty instantly. Things that get downed that are frozen are going to drop orbs, and as you're landing shots, it's putting orbs out there too. It's just all about what you find value in and where you find that value. For PvE, there's a lot to like with Midnight Coup. There is. I went over a lot, and I wanted to show you how certain things work, how certain things don't work, where the application is with some of the things it's capable of. For me personally, I would put a tie as the top roles being Explosive Payload One for All, and Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors, because again, no reasonable person. But after that, things are really good, but they get a little bit more niche, like Firefly Kinetic Tremors. If you want to use that, go right ahead. Firefly One for All, Explosive Payload Desperate Measures. And there's roles here that I talked about that I didn't personally like, but they're going to shine with things that you like to do. It really depends on where you find the best fit. Like seriously, 6 or 7 really good PvE roles are here. Roles that are good enough to kind of sunset some other things in your vault. I do have those as the top 2. It's a kinetic hand cannon, and those 2 perk combinations are very special for kinetic hand cannon. As far as your mag, masterwork, barrel, just slot best available, it's all RNG. And then we get into PvP. The finish line is near, guys. Midnight Coup, it's pretty good, but I'm not going to say with confidence that it's one of the best hand cannons in the game, because I don't think that it's that. I do think it's a good option, and it's all about player feel. But for the Crucible, the facts are the facts. You're really fighting range and stability the whole time with this thing. You are. And a well-rolled 140 performs a little bit better. Like, let's take a really good roll for it. The explosive payload opening shot. For this thing, it's high range. I mean, it can go to 70. If I put on Hammer Forged, or add instability with small bore like I have, but it's a weird dance because if you were to have, let's say, full bore here, 75 range, but 35 stability. There's a lot of hand cannons that can hit that range threshold and almost double the stability of that. And then you're relying on perks at that point, but this is one of the best rolls for it. And then you compare it to Kept Confidence, you compare it to Austringer, and I can say confidently, for me, I do like Austringer more, Kept Confidence more. Zen Moment, Eye of the Storm enhanced, or Snapshot Zen. I can make the range higher if I wanted to. With this particular Austringer roll, I can still switch things around, but this roll and others, they did just fine. And I think payload carries it a lot, because I'm not sure if you face this thing with explosive payload. It's rough, so you're using that on others. That's what they see. The rolls did fine. Then we have something like explosive payload Zen Moment. This was good too. Payload does count as 2 hits for Zen Moment, and that right there is special. You get the stacks faster. And the only other hand cannon to have that is the old Nation of Beasts. But with the raid update, they took that combination off. So it's the only hand cannon now. You apply a ton of flinch with explosive payload. You're more stable and you take less flinch because of Zen. After using it, I had success with it, had good games with it. But with all of them, I never really felt that I was dominant with it. And then one of my roses has quick draw explosive payload. I'm sitting there, just kind of wondering. I mean, I tried max stability with Zen Moment, like right here, and dude, it was amazing. I really liked it. The shots felt incredible. It dueled well, but then its range stats started showing. And at times, Ghost Bullet showed up. And then I realized I can get even more stability with Zen, way more range with an Austringer, and that just ended that. And honestly, I do like some other hand cannons more, but there was one roll I found myself using the most. It was in the opening clip, and when I showed it earlier, you might have wondered why I counterbalanced mod. Well, I went over why. I needed to be 95 or 100. The Firefly 1 for all roll, it's just a super fun mini game to do. Like, I don't recommend this for most people, but if you want a challenge, it's a ton of fun because you can shoot 3 enemies. Like in that opening clip, I shot one target, I shot another, and then I went back to that first target and it procced again. I was able to get 1 for all. Radiant dodge, and 1 for all radiant is a 2-tap. And then there's other times where I would just shoot 3 enemies and get 1 for all, then pop the radiant dodge. And on small maps like Cauldron, it works really, really well. But there's also Firefly. It counts as tags, so if they're in a group or fairly close together within 4 meters, I get a headshot final blow on one of them. Firefly is going to splash the others, and it grabs 1 for all stacks. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to keep playing with it. But as the game evolves, we have a new expansion coming up, a big one. Even though it did get some stat help, I mean, that plus 10 range, the 14 AE, I found myself enjoying other 140s, but that's just me. Its strength is reload, handling, and aim assist. And there's things like moving target. Moving target gets it to 100 aim assist. Like, those are good things. I mean, you can play with desperate measures, do desperate measures things. But no matter what, as I started with, I mean, to be truly happy with it, I think it needs a 5 out of 5, like a true god roll. And what does that look like? It could be something like small bore, range masterwork, Acarize, explosive payload Zen. And when enhanced comes around, enhanced Zen Moment passively gives plus 5 stability. So it'd be 67 range, 67 stability, 60 handling, 56 reload, 90 aim assist. You'll full bore in there if you want, but it's a big penalty on a very low already stability stat. Because of its aim assist, it does feel sticky, and it does okay. If you like it, go right ahead. I think it needs a lot of help, and I already have a lot of hand cannons that are really, really good. I'm not looking to reach with this one. So that's it. My Midnight Coup review, and I do view it more as a PvE weapon. And for PvE, I wanted to show you what the combinations look like, what the numbers are, how they're applicable, where it works, where it doesn't work, and if they're going to work for you. That's something for you to decide. It took a long time to do this. It took a long time to get all these rolls, so I hope you liked it. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about Midnight Coup down below. What rolls are you liking? What weapons are you pairing it with? And does anybody have a shiny that is the perfect roll for them? Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.